I started hunting when I was probably 8, 9 years old. Small game. Started deer hunting when I was probably 12 or 13. I think I got my first deer rifle when I was 12. Couldn't tell you what age I was when I shot my first deer. I remember it vividly.
I started hunting when I was 12 years old. Hunting in Pennsylvania was a big deal where I was from. I grew up in a little small town, and when deer season opened, all the schools would close down. There was no school, it was deer season. That's the culture that I come from with whitetail hunting, and that passion for hunting was a whole community thing that I grew up with.
Started in hunting because of my father. Some of my earliest memories are duck hunting with my dad. I have no idea how old I was. I was that young. I liked it right away. We would be outside. It's in the fall. The weather is great. The scenery is great. The smell of the air is great. As you float down and you get closer to the pickup place, sometimes somebody has built a table or something where they're getting ready to leave, and your eye immediately makes out a right angle because you haven't seen one in a while. And one of the things that I enjoy most about it is that you can see for miles and miles and miles, and there are no right angles.
Yeah, my dad was the person that got me into hunting. Growing up, we were always outside, always engaged in what Southeast Alaska and Kodiak had to offer. Hunting in Southeast is very similar to how we did the other day, the first day. Slow walk through the timber, not a lot of alpine hunting, at least where we were at. It's a lot of work to get through. The timber line is much higher in Southeast than it is in Kodiak. Which is why hunting on Kodiak is kind of cool, because depending on what part of the island you're on, you've got heavy timber on the north end or zero timber on the south end, and kind of an intermediate mix in the middle. People fly from all over the world to hunt on Kodiak. We have a very unique species of bear. The only place in the world you're ever going to find Kodiak brown bears on Kodiak Island and its archipelago.
You said you remembered your first hunting trip pretty well. Mm-hmm. Can you tell me about it?
Yeah, we were hunting in Sitka. Took the Zodiac over into Silver Bay. So I had to get out of the skiff on a really big beach, get at a shooting position, and the way the weather was and everything, the old man had to take the boat back out. Couldn't really walk me through it. So I was kind of on my own making the decision, shot placement, distance, all that. Lots of thoughts going through your head on your first animal, and there was some remorse when I walked up and she was dead, but that changed when the tenderloins hit the table that day.
What was the driving force to go out every day and go hunting at 16? I mean, what was it for you that drove you to go out and do that every day?
For us to do that, it was just, you're teenagers, you want to get the hell out of your house.
And now it's just the thrill of being out there, even if it is just one day a week, or?
Now it's, I've said this before, August 1 is deer season opening day, ends October 31st. And to punch the tag in the first day, the first week, the first month, shuts you down for the rest of the year. And so, like our walk we had the other day, I would much prefer to spend my time doing that for 2.5 months and punch out on the last day of the year, or last day of the season, just so I can maximize every opportunity to hunt. It's cool to watch their behavior, watch their habits. We spend some time calling, which I don't spend a lot of time calling because I generally hunt solo, and I'm not comfortable running a bleat all by myself. I want another set of eyes out there, especially with a bigger rifle. But it's cool to watch those animals respond to what you're doing or not respond. But it's even cooler to see them. Like if we had the opportunity to on that first buck, and if we were to have seen that doe and that fawn, it's really cool to watch them react to it, because it shows if you're doing it right or you're doing it wrong. It's like fishing for silvers in still water. You throw lures at them, you throw flies at them, you watch them and you watch them respond to what you're throwing at them. or grayling on the Delta Clearwater, and you can tell when you're doing it wrong because the fish isn't responding. The same thing with calling in blacktails. When you call and they run away, you've done something drastically wrong, and that happens. And for lots of different reasons. Maybe you did it wrong, maybe they just didn't like the pitch and the tone that you were throwing at them. You could look at like my fall hunting time and see that as inefficient or as unsuccessful. In my mind, it's not unsuccessful to go out 40 days in the fall and go hunting and not shoot anything. That's just my time out in the field. You don't think about all the bad times you had when you're sitting there and the weather's got you down or you can't even get out. But you remember those times that you do those successful things, and all of a sudden, at the end of the day, you've got an animal to take care of and take home and butcher up and put on the table.
My name's Kirk. I grew up in Pennsylvania, northeastern Pennsylvania. I moved to Alaska in 2013 and fell in love with this place, and now I have a new home, and I'm an Alaskan now. Alaska is a place that's just full of adventure everywhere you go. I came here dreaming of the hunting and fishing, and I've always heard about it, and I couldn't wait to get involved with it, and I moved here and I started doing it. And the more people I met, I found a lot of people here didn't hunt, didn't fish as much as what I was used to. You know, the whole community where I grew up hunted, and here I found a lot of people just that I talked to. They said they used to hunt, but they don't do it much anymore, and I kind of was surprised by that at first, and then I hunted and fished here. And it's hard. Hunting here, it can be very difficult. Every time I've gone out and every time I go out in Alaska, it teaches me something else. There's no way to predict the weather here. You can go out one day and it be 50 degrees and beautiful, and 2 days later you have an inch of snow on the ground, and it can change in the blink of an eye. And there's terrain here in Alaska that I've never experienced anywhere in my life. You're taking up to, a 2,000-pound animal and hauling it out on your back. That is what makes it difficult. And it also is what makes it enjoying. Being out there and doing that is, for me, it's fun. And, that's one thing about living here is I hunt on the Yukon River, I hunt moose. And most people I know say that that's a hunt in a lifetime, and I get to do it every year.
To me, it's a way of, it's just a small step in being self-reliant. There's a lot of people in the world who don't have the connection of the direct harvesting of their food. And when you do hunt, of course, you're harvesting an animal to provide nourishment for you and your family. And so you have a very direct, natural connection with your food source. A lot of people don't have that. The earliest picture I was able to find, I know I have others, was a picture of my dad, brother, and I hunting in 1970 or 71 near Eureka between Glen Allen and Palmer, caribou hunting. And you look at the old snow machines and stuff, how things used to be. The first picture on this is a picture of me with a 1980 version of a backpack and tent, and this was when I first moved to Fairbanks. The thing I remember a couple things about this trip. We were sitting there glassing and glassing and glassing. We heard something We were looking around and I turned around and looked and it was a station wagon going across the Denali Highway. We had no idea we were that close to it. So, because we came the other way. That's what I remember about that picture. I'm looking at a photo of a moose that I harvested one year. And the thing that I remember was that there were 4 of us going on at the float this year, but only 2 of us could go because it happened, this trip was right after 9/11. All the other trips, you could look up and you could see the jets, once or twice a day going from Europe over to Asia. You could see the contrails. And this time there were none because the planes were all shut down. And that moose I took shortly after 9/11 and was out in the bush of Alaska. There's a picture of floating on a river. I stopped there. Every time I floated this river, we stopped. And the river is spectacular, and it comes around a bluff, and then it makes a right-hand turn, and after that right-hand turn, there's another smaller river that feeds into it. And it's an enormously popular spot for game. And it's one of the most beautiful spots up in northern Alaska on this particular river because of the scenery. There's mountains, and you can climb, and you can see moose over there, and you can see a wolf over there, and you can see a caribou walking over that way. And at the top of this particular bluff, there is a 4-poster hand-carved pieces of wood, triangle at the top on each poster, faced perfectly looking up this river out into this valley. And someone had died up there. And there used to be 100 years ago or so, there was a small mining exploration group that went through there. And I think that's where this guy had died, but they had spent a lot of time up there and he loved it. So they laid him to rest looking up his favorite river valley, and we always stopped by to say hello. Living in Alaska and going hunting and going on those trips and being out there and doing that and knowing how to do it, every time I think that I may have led a boring and repetitious life, I remember I've done things that 98%, 99% of other American men have never done. So maybe I'm not as adventurous as some, but I'm more adventurous than most, and that's what hunting has given me.